And to discuss what Nigerians have to go through using the ATM with me is Dr. Emeka Okengwu. He's a financial analyst. You're welcome. In fact, I can call you in-house financial analyst now, Doc. Thanks for honoring us once again. Welcome to the program. Now, ATMs, we can say that they have saved lives, they've been helpful too, but these days the challenges are becoming more daunting.
ATMs, automated teller machines. What are they? And why are they presenting challenges? You see, when you run a pilot or when you run what you call a proof of concept, it's usually easy. But when you now begin to now deploy technologies, that is where the whole gumot begins to now happen. And you see, in looking at the issues of the ATM in Nigeria, please let's not look at the ATM. Let's look at the what you might call the architecture or the mindset or what is required. Okay, what frameworks do you require? What technological baselines or bases do you require to be able to effectively run ATMs? Because even in the countries that gave us the ATMs, you know, the card systems in this will surprise you. The card system solutions is supposed to be one of the biggest in America. Yet in 2010 or thereabout, there was a hack into their system, and 40 million, ATM cards were stolen. This is Card Systems of America. Okay, and it's replicated in almost all the developed countries. So when you're talking about the ATM and the challenges of the ATM, for we who are probably third, fourth tier users, do we understand it? If we don't understand what the basics are, you might not be able to understand why we're going through this frustration.
Well, then, what we need to understand, yours is to go to your bank, collect it, let them connect you to your account, and you need money at any time. You go to the machine and
yes,
brings out your money.
Unfortunately, ma'am, it goes beyond that.
Okay, so tell us what
there's something
behind it.
There's something they call the Payment Card Industry Security Standards.
Okay.
And these are supposed to now present what you might call the legal and technological frameworks for operating these cards. And right now, the basic problems you have with your ATM cards is not with the machine, vis-a-vis those, what do I call it now, those figures or those numbers you're punching in. It has to do with what you might call your weak, or default configuration. It has to do with your weak password, and account policy systems. It has to do with the interoperability. Okay, I've used this word so many times. It has to do with what you call your back-end infrastructure. And in this instance, you are going to your bank, the bank has given you an ATM card. Was that ATM card produced by the bank? If you're using a credit card and you have any issues with your credit card, the numbers you're calling, somebody is going to be picking that call from either Sweden or somewhere. So what's different with the ATM cards is just being able to now localize probably the production, and then the issuance of these pins. Now, that comes to where you call your human capital, your human capacity. Do we have it? What's the relationship with what we might call the ministries or agencies of government that should superintend standards and the people who are now bringing in these technologies? So going to the market or going to the bank or going to a teller to put in your card and you don't see money and you say, UBA has taken my money or Diamond Bank has taken my money, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that.
Now, besides the challenge of going there now and not even seeing money, the fraud case is on the increase in Nigeria now, and it's still part of what you were saying.
Yes.
So how do we checkmate these fraud cases?
First and foremost, you cannot you see, I tell you, I like to localize things so that people can be able to understand it well. Okay? Somebody gives you a car. The new cars that are making these days, they say to you, all you need to do is to change oil. Don't open the engine. It's called sealed engines. And then you bring in that sealed engine car and you're traveling with your kids. And you actually now see a wire pull out. And it says, do not put back any wire there. Because you don't understand the technology of that vehicle. How are you going to be able to know where you're going to put back your wire in? I think the primary problem we have in this country is that our consumer nature has made it in such a way that we are no longer curious. You are no longer what you call technologically curious. Okay, what the Chinese people do is that whatever it is you sell to them, whatever technology is available to them, they don't buy their technology. They want to now be able to now understand, they take it apart and try to now appreciate why that technology operates the way it operates, with a view of now increasing the capacity of producing something similar that they can localize. Let me take it a little bit out of tangent. Right now in this country, all our research institutes have been on strike for close to 3, 4, 5 months. So where do you take these things to? We have a Ministry of ICT. We even have a Ministry of Information. Now, let me even begin to now at least give you a little bit of where this confusion, might come from. You have NMIC, which is supposed to be dealing with data. It is in the Office of the Secretary of Government. You have population. It is in National Planning Commission. You have ICT standing alone as a ministry. You have a Ministry of Information standing alone as a ministry. Now, tell me how these people who are supposed to be dealing with only one thing, information generation, information storage, information dissemination, how are you able to now develop what I can call a one-track approach to solving the issues of data and storage and all that? That should have even now, started also looking at this your ATM palaver or brouhaha. But because from the level of our what we call superstructure, from the level of our governance, you have a lot of misfits. You have a lot of things that are not properly aligned. That is for the infrastructure part of it now, what you can call the human capital pyramid. And then you now go to the technology. If, for instance, we had a Ministry of ICT that had some form of legal framework to regulate what kind of machines you bring in, based on the fact that they are going to make certain that these machines you bring in can be interoperable. If we had a Ministry of Science and Technology that was also now researching into now, domesticating this configuration of these machines, so that it does not come with this configuration that the person who has built it, has given to you, and it's easily hackable. So how do you now control it?
A lot of people have also complained that these machines are just not enough. You just drive to some ATMs and you see the queues and you just wonder, what is going on here? What is so difficult for the banks? Is it, I begin to wonder that, are these machines so expensive that you cannot put them everywhere like you see in other countries?
Well, ma'am, it's not as if, yes, they're expensive, but two, somebody needs to operate them. Somebody needs to connect them to systems. Somebody needs to energize them. That's also what happens to your mast. It's not saying the mast that is the matter. It is getting that mast to operate. And for you to operate that mast, you need energy, you need power. So when you now have a bank that probably is running 2 ATMs in 1 or 2 of its branches, over the weekends, and they need to shut down the other ATMs, because for you to have that ATM on, if there is no electricity or if there is no energy, you will need to shut it down. If you have to leave it on, all through the day, somebody has to pay for the diesel. So what it is they do now, they look at probably where they call, their high density areas and try to leave 1 or 2 of the ATMs on. Most of the time, like I said, you see power, you see some kind of backup, you see a light, you put it in there, and it's not operating because the systems that are supposed to be turned on are turned off. This is what it is. So it's not just the banks. It's important that we understand this. Yes, of course, the banks have, a little bit of a blame, but I think it's the whole gamut of national infrastructure and how ready we are. Singapore took 7 years to begin to do, what it is we're trying to do here, because the ATM also has what you have to, is related to what you call the POS, which is point of sale. The point of sale machines is another very major challenge, because you see, for me, the ATM is all about an emergency. Okay, you want to pick some quick cash or quick teller and all that. When we have issues, we be the ones that might now become your everyday, transaction, everyday living. You go to a restaurant, with your kids, and you want to give them a good time, and then you swipe them. You go to the pharmacy, whatever it is you want to go to. That is where the risk is coming from. If we are not able to deal with what we can call the inconsequential one, the everyday PIN and take it out, is it the POS, you know, and the debit cards and the other that we're able to deal with?
And then if the POSs are working, the ATMs will have less people because you don't need cash at that point.
That's the whole idea. So when people talk about ATM, you must be able to take the ATM beyond.
It will still take me to cashless banking,
yes,
the CBN,
yes,
now the policy.
Yes.
The CBN has been trying so hard, but I begin to wonder, beyond the availability of the technology now, yes, does it have something to do with psyche as a people that unless you have cash to give? Because I have tried to pay people who even have the POS machines on it, and they tell you, I prefer cash.
Well, because the POS machine could fail, has failed. You know, so it's a two-way thing. It's just not you that has the card. It's also the person that has the goods. If those cards malfunction and you've taken something worth $1 million, and you probably don't live in that town, why wouldn't the person want cash? So I think in looking at this whole thing, first and foremost, let us look at Nigeria as 160 million people. Let's stop looking at Nigeria. You know, there's a school of thought that says 6% of Nigerians have access to the internet. And that school of thought says 29%. Whichever way you look at it, 29% might be giving you 43 million people. 6%, of course, will give you a lot less. But I don't think that's important. I don't think that looking at the people who dwell in the cities, who live in the cities, is a way of now saying, no, we're moving forward. I think the way to move forward is to be able to, first and foremost, make certain that the people in the local areas have access to these cards, have access to these, you know, services. And the critical mass, the critical factor, CBN policy, federal government, it's all about, do you have, first and foremost, energy to power these machines? Second, and equally important, is the technology, to understand the technology you're bringing in. It is not enough for you to go and buy a car that is sealed, that you only need to take it to the mechanic. The day that car has a flat tire, or the day something happens to one of the sensors, what happens to the car? So we must be able to also now look at the human capital, the required human capital to be able to now drive this process of both the e-commerce, the cashless society, and then, for crying out aloud, what are you going to buy with a POS machine in Wuse Market? You go there, you finish putting your stuff together, and then, oh, there's no light. And the woman says, madam, please keep my yam for me. I beg you with God Almighty. So when we're talking about I prefer cash, you go into a shop, probably what is operating that shop is one small I pass my neighbor generator that might not be adequate for the POS, the kind of sensors. You load in that kind of, you know, energy or power, a surge goes in there, damages one of the sensors, and your POS can start acting up. You punch in one and it gives you 1,000. So when we don't understand, you know, these little details, when people tell me this cashless society, cashless economy, cashless policy, cashless is, I say first and foremost, please, can we reduce our country, okay, to something that is elementary? We are 160 million. 80% of us live in the local areas. Less than 20% of us live in town. Those of us who live in town, less than 20% of those who live in town are employed by government. These are the kind of statistics that we should be running. Every other person is trying to eke out a living one way or the other. Less than 25 million Nigerians are banked. It means that you have over 100 and something million people who do not even have an account that you can charge a card to. So that should be the things that worry us. You know, when we bring out these beautiful, let's look at countries that have worked. First and foremost, do you have what I call a proper population, you know, census? Because that should be able to now drive and guide your ATM placement or your e-commerce placement facilities. Now, when you have a place like Karuna, for an instance, where you have so many people living, is it possible for you to be able to now create what you might call some market that is technology driven, where people can go in, like most stores elsewhere, pick whatever it is they want to pick up, so that you can begin to now reduce this load, madam. But because we wake up in the morning and somebody says to you, Abuja has the 20 million, 10 million, 5 million people that are in Abuja. Truly, how many of them have access to public funding? How many of them are paid, you know, what you can call consistent salaries? How many of them earn wages, you know, that can be computed, that can now, you know, start some kind of credit-worthy rating? This is what the issues are. And until we're able to put these issues, where they belong to, we're not getting anywhere.
But then in the situation where the ATM is even working, you get there, the thing is telling you there's no cash in it. Is it that difficult to put cash in it as well?
Yeah, you see, like I said, a lot of these things, you have banks. It's not when you go to Diamond Bank. You can only use a Diamond Bank ATM to take money from Diamond Bank. Other people come from other branches.
Yes.
Okay, probably over the weekend, this ATM is loaded with, I don't know how much, 200, 300, 400,000. You see a guy that comes there with 4 cards. No, I mean, these are he puts the first card, he takes 200,000. He brings the second card, he takes 400,000. In fact, I went to buy something for my car in Gudu Market. And there was this woman, I felt so pained. Had a baby on her back, it was very hot. And another gentleman was there on the card, pressing. Then he brings out his phone, checks the number, brings out. And I went to him and said, excuse me, sir. The least you can do is to please look behind and let this woman, madam, how much are you looking for? Probably money for transport or something. Now, when people now see the ATM, okay, as now sitting to be able to now do that bank, people can actually sit there and take 300, 400,000 in a sitting. It doesn't happen in other areas. The ATM is just supposed to be some quick thing that can be able to give you some quick cash to be able to make a payment, which is why your POS is the way to go. Because if you had a POS, what are you loading all the cash for in your pocket? All you need to do is to walk into a restaurant, walk into a pharmacy, walk into anything you want to do, and then you pick it up. So I think the major problem, ma'am, not to take a lot of, flog a lot of this, is that I don't think we have been able to, as a country, define what it takes to run an economy that is productive.
You're watching Finance and Economy on the NTA, and today we're discussing how ATMs, meant to make life easier for the users, are plagued by various challenges, making things quite difficult for them. My guest is Dr. Emeka Okengwu. He is a financial analyst. Thanks for being there, Doc.
Thanks, ma'am.
You were going to talk about the economy generally, because of course we know that all these things are interwoven. If we had everything working according to the way they're supposed to, maybe we wouldn't be having this teething problem, in quote, for ATMs at this time.
Okay. Each time, I want you to please take a mental note of this. Each time they show agriculture, or they're trying to do something on agriculture, you'll be seeing tomato in plates. Okay? You'll be seeing okra and all this, egusi in place. They just show where the woman has put them on the ground. When you go to other countries of the world where it's a little bit more organized, what you see are weights. Okay? You say you want a kg,
yes.
They weigh it, they give you a kg, they give you the cost of a kg. Now, this is the beginning. When you go there and say, madam, this tomato, this one, are you not selling for 150? Madam, sell for 100. Okay? This is how you are not able to now run what you call a proper production process. Because in the first place, the woman who has brought those tomatoes to market should have known the value of what she was bringing to the market. And there's a cost to that value, and that material or that good cannot be taxed. You that is coming to the market to come and buy tomato or buy whatever it is you buy, all you need to do is to be able to take your POS card to say, I want 1 kg of this, 1 kg of that, 1 kg of this. So we have not been able, I think we'll play with what's in Nigeria. We have this habit of not looking at even what the other people are doing. We've not been able to move from this hour. And again, I think I need to explain this. When people hear this word, import substitution, what it connotes is that you have a production process that you're supporting with imports. So when people come and tell you that the import substitution model that we're running in this country, the first thing you should be able to ask the person is, what are you producing? What has made this thing, where are you now substituting from? So if you don't understand this aspect to our national life, you might not understand why anytime you have a lull in oil trade, every other thing in this country ceases to operate. Anytime there is an increase in our oil, every other thing seems to be on the increase. Because we are just one monoproduct. And I hate to use the word, I keep saying this, economics, buy and sell. Everybody's called it all sorts of names, Dutch disease, mono economy, whatever it is. We have not been able to think our economy through by thinking the human capital, thinking what it is we need vis-a-vis protein content, thinking where this protein content is going to come from, thinking the amount of land we need to put to be able to generate this. And then that way, when you're talking about e-commerce, it's a lot easier for you to operate it. It's a lot easier for you to now, issue this POS because you know where the tomato is coming from, you know what the customer, consumption pattern is, you know how the taxing system will be, and you have something that is smooth, like the value chain. This so-called value chain everybody is talking about now begins to, naturally kick in. So this is what the problem is, madam.
Like from what you're saying, it will just, once something is in place, it's be like a domino effect, the others start working. But we have the capacity to do this. That's what I try to wrap my head around. We do have the capacity to
unfortunately, what we have is the paper capacity. We don't have. You see, let me ask a question. When was the last time we did any mineral exploration program in this country? When was the last time we did any agroponics project in this country? When you and I were young, okay, we're a lot older than you people, so probably you didn't say
when you were young.
Yes, in Nsukka in those days, as far back as the 70s, the university had greenhouses. As far back as the 50s, Nigeria had drag lines that were producing mineral resources in tons. We had trains that were running coal all over the country. Sure. We had cocoa. That's where you come from. Tons and tons of it, pyramids of cocoa being produced. Do you know why, ma? Because you had research institutes that were producing the cocoa seedlings. And they were producing these seedlings based on soil tests, based on demand, based on market contracts. You had the people who are exporting kernel or groundnuts were producing it based on very specified land mass, irrigation programs. Everything was tied in. But what do you have now? We have more of people talking about turning agriculture into a business. How do you turn agriculture into a business when the people who are bringing the agriculture are bringing it in small place and are selling 15 naira? Show me one plant, show me one farm in this country, one that can produce probably 200,000 metric tons of food. Show me any farm. We are a country that slaughters at least 60 million ram in one day during the Ramadan season. Show me one farm in this country that has 10,000 ram. During Christmas, everybody tries to kill a goat. Show me one farm in this country that has 10,000 goats. Yes, you're talking about agriculture. You're talking about having the capacity. You have 2.9 million arable irrigatable lands. Less than 250,000 hectares have been irrigated, and all of them are in the hands of small holder farmers. Show me one farm here that's integrated, madam. Show me one. So when you're talking about we're having the capacity, yes, we can talk about this capacity. We're 160 million people. How many of us are educated? When you talk about this natural resource of 160 million people, Sheon, please tell me what percentage of that population has education? So where is our capacity?
Well, we're getting there. Let's go back to this ATM issue. Now, the people who are affected most now are the ones, the users, the end users of these services. Because now it's not even a matter of choice for some of them. It's compulsory for you. If you, for example, if I have about 20,000 naira, that's all I have in my account, I cannot go into the bank to go and collect anything. They will tell me, they will charge me if I come and queue inside the bank that I can only use the ATM. So for some of these users, end users, it is compulsory you use the ATM. And then why should they be the ones paying for the inadequacy of the system? Well,
you see, if you look at the contracts of the ATM, if you begin an ATM card, there's a form you sign. You read it. The only obligation the bank owes you is giving you that PIN number, which you are at liberty to change. It's like having a credit card. A friend of mine took a credit card, and I said to him, "You don't have a discipline to touch this card. Don't touch it." he defaulted. Before you could say, Jack, I think his credit limit was 500,000. He was owing 4 million, and he said he was going to court. I said, you're going to mess yourself up, because it's an honor thing. So the onus of proof, and this is where these hackers come in. This is where these people who now break into these things come in. The moment you have this technology to pick up these details and somebody has your PIN number, and again, I think there's some important thing I want to say. There was a study done by Panda Lab. Panda Lab now showed that every week, 53,000 websites were being established. 60% of them belonging to banks, and they were all fake. So most of the times now, for somebody who's not that educated, you see a note from Diamond Bank or whichever bank saying, you need to upgrade your account details. This is how these things happen. Now, to what extent has these banks been able to now say, we didn't issue this, this is not our thing?
Before they say it, people would have... do you understand? The first one.
So you give these things, and they say that if you don't do it, this is your last day. And it's so well done with this bank logo and everything that the same mails you get from the bank and this one that comes from this website are practically the same thing. So how many times have Diamond Bank come on programs like this, paid for it for crying out aloud, done advocacy, done bills, spread this around the country to say, listen, do not do X, Y, Z. When you go to an ATM machine and you do this, some people will put in and they say, the thing is not responding. They pull out their card, put in a second time, pull out their card, put in a third time. Somebody must tell them that at the time you load in that card a third time, probably you've made a mistake with one of your digits. They can lock your card down. So until you are able to also now educate people, and unfortunately, the people see this ATM card as anytime money. By 2 o'clock in the morning, the man has come out of a bush joint. He wants to go and get more issue. He begins to stagger towards the thing. Probably puts in a wrong stuff. His money is taken. He starts shouting that the banks are stealing his money. No. So I think what it is we need to do is that the Ministry of Information and Communications Technology have a lot of role to play here. They have a very key role to play. They need to begin to set what we call these standards that I mentioned before. Do we have a Nigerian payment cards industry security standards? This is a question that the ministry should answer.
Finally, there must be some advantage to this system.
Of course there is an advantage. There's no doubt about it. There's an advantage. Numerous, madam. I mean, you're not carrying too much cash around. For those who actually not appreciate it, it's easier. You can be able to get money, wherever you are. You run into the village and there's a situation. You run into a bank and you get. I mean, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. But what I'm trying to say, let it not get any worse. And the only way we might be able to now stop it from getting any worse is for us not to get used to what it is we have now as bad service. We must be able to start shouting and crying for government to be able to now put in the structures and instruments and programs that can begin to now increase, the efficiency or efficacy of these services. Once that is done, we're good to go.
As usual, Doc, thank you very much for coming on Finance and Economy.